And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 131. That is Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Bruins are fresh off a New York sweep. Just showed up to New York. Quick little 2-day road trip. Boom. Out of there. 2 wins.
Two wins, 4 points, a trip to the M&M factory. What more do you need? Back home.
In Times Square. Why not? Quick trip. Good trip. Going into the New York trip, I believe 7 of the 8 Bruins upcoming games were on the road. So lots of home games in the first half. Definitely going to be less in the second. Going to get used to those away rinks and the other team's dark jerseys. Honestly, I think the Bruins should institute, I know this isn't really in the works, but they should institute the Pooh Bears on the road more. Why not?
I mean, they should just bring them back even more. The fact that I know that like now in the second half of the year, they're going to do a lot more of the Winter Classic ones, which, as I think we both said, Steven Person, pretty slick, pretty good, but
yes.
You can't just like throw away the Pooh Bears after like 6. I think it was only 6 total games. Like, keep on switching back and forth. What they need to do, which I know they won't, but it's like when you see in college hockey, when a team's like in like a playoff game, like for Hockey East, and they bring out like their alternates for a game or like the Bean Pot, chef's
Beautiful.
kiss. Be you taking like their all red alternates for like a Beanpot game or a NCAA game? Beautiful. They'll never do it, the Bruins. Like, you'll never see them like wear the Pooh Bears in like a Stanley Cup game.
Game 7 of the second round.
That's the thing, is like they would do that and they would lose, and people will all blame like the Pooh Bear. Like, that's what it will come down. It's like remember when Belichick wore, what do you wear, like a red sweatshirt?
He wore a red sweatshirt for the
07. Yeah. And everyone's like,
yeah.
That was the original. The vibes are off. Was like Bill Belichick wearing a red sweatshirt. That's where it all started. So maybe not for a high stakes Stanley Cup game, but I'd like to see it in for a couple of early round playoff games. Why not?
I don't even get like for the rest of the regular season. Why is that jersey not used more for away games? Because the other team doesn't have to plan around it. Like, it's still a white jersey. Wear it. I don't. You have them on stock, and honestly, they look better. They look good. They look slick. So I don't know why they don't change it up more. That's why I like the NBA. What the NBA does. I think we've talked about this. Where like, I don't know the exact rules of the NBA with jerseys, but it feels like teams just kind of wear what they want. Although I don't like the look of Celtics green. Like I don't like the
their alternate one, the one that looks like Bucks jerseys.
Well, the one they wore against the Warriors, I don't think they shouldn't be wearing those at home. They should be white or something else.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just me. That's a weird preference I have.
It's even, don't forget, the Red Sox, when they clinched in 2018, they wore those like blue alternate road ones too. So again,
yes.
Just saying. And I don't even like those ones. I think the Red Sox blue alternate like road ones stink. All for the all red Red Sox jerseys. Those are the best ones. Those are the chef kiss ones.
Or the Bruins have to come up with jerseys that look similar to their Red Sox warm up old time unis at the Winter Classic and make a hockey jersey into that. That's what they should do. That's what the people are really wanting.
Yes,
like candy canes out on the ice. But into Bruins talk, because things just continue to roll. It is, Conor, we've said this a lot this year. There's something different about this team. But you and I, credit to us, we're high on this team from the jump. I don't think we were this high. I don't think anybody could possibly be this high. But it continues to roll. And one interesting development this year is Patrice Bergeron, in that against the Islanders on Wednesday night, takes a puck straight to the face, just deflected, unexpected, boom, right to the face. And he goes to the locker room, comes right back out, plays the rest of the game, plays against the Rangers. And my God, if that is not the most respected player in the National Hockey League, if that is not the gold standard for what any team would want in their captain, I don't know what is. Because my goodness, seeing him come out like that, quite the leader. Quite the leader.
Yeah, it's something where you look at that and the immediate optics of it, where he goes right down the tunnel, got the towel over his face. You're like, that's not great. But were any of us surprised to see him back out there like 2 minutes later, like his nose literally like a 90-degree angle? No, like that's just kind of the player he is. And you look at all that he's played through over the years, fractured ribs, broken noses, collapsed lung in the 2013 Stanley Cup final, all this stuff. It's just par for the course for him to play through that. But I think it once again shows the obvious thing, how tough this guy is and how he can play through these things. But I think also you listen to guys after the game, whether it's a guy like Marchand or Olmark or any of these players, I think just the reverence they have for him. It's something that I think we've kind of touched on before, but you look at across all different sports, there's obviously a lot of buy-in from a team wide in terms of winning for a veteran, the respect for a veteran leader in the room, what have you. But I think Bergeron's like just a special case in terms of just how much they do revere and respect this guy and what his role is. Like, I don't think you've seen a collective buy-in from a whole roster surrounding one player and, being cognizant of what the stakes are and not just the contention window that they're in and, how many more years they can, get a kick at the can like this, but to also win and try to play for a guy like Bergeron and, play to his standard. That buy-in for a player like that is special. It's something you don't see, across sports, not even in hockey, I think, in terms of just how much that centers around the identity, the drive of this team. It's obviously these guys all play for each other. They have a collective goal in mind in terms of winning a Stanley Cup, and they realize the opportunity they have. But to, have that be centered around one player, an established veteran captain like Bergeron, it's special. Like I really don't think you see it that often in terms of just how, not how much hold he has, but just how much the team gravitates around him in his every move. It's something that, you look at Bergeron and his career, and obviously surefire Hall of Famer, the best defensive forward ever. But I think when you look even just outside of the play on the ice, his impact on this team, you can't even kind of put it into analytics, can't put it into a heat map, can't do any of that stuff. Can't even look at the stat book. It's special what he does for this team.
You know the phrase, you don't know what you have until it's gone. It's an unfortunate phrase, but when you think about it, I think it became very real for not just Bruins fans and management, but I also think it became very real for players last summer when there was a real chance he was retiring. Like, for a long time, we kind of sat here and said, all right, feels like he could retire. New coach, like a lot of injuries at the beginning of the year. Why, it just doesn't look like a very great situation to walk back into. And I think for a lot of those players, it was like, oh my God, he came back. We need to make the most of this. Like the thought of not having him and blowing other chances is scary. And I think you're seeing that on the ice. I think it's not just Bergeron, it's Krejci, it's Foligno, it's even guys like Marchand, right? Like doing it for them. And I think you just see with Bergeron alone, I mean, as you said, the consummate professional, the consummate leader. I've never seen a team rally around a veteran like him. But I would also say there's no veteran like him in the league. There's lots of great veterans. That's not what I'm saying. But there's nobody like Patrice Bergeron. There will never, be a guy like Patrice Bergeron who stays with one team his whole career, is as perfect as he is in every possible way. And this hits at the other point of, he doesn't look like a guy who is going to retire after this season, just given how good he still is. The Athletic put out their tiers, which, player tiers and mid-season form. And, obviously there's ones we disagree with, but Bergeron is still up there. Bergeron is still in the upper echelon of players. I think it was like the 1B tier or 2B.
Yeah.
I forget.
I think he was right below I think he was like the third overall tier. I think it's like McDavid and like McKinnon and Matthews are in one tier. Then it's like Pasta and those guys. I think Bergeron's maybe the tier right below, just still top 20 player, top 15 player.
Yeah.
So still really good. Really, really good.
Not bad. And I just, you look at that and you look at the play on the ice and you say, well, this guy could continue to play for 3 more years and be completely fine. But you also look at the injury that took place Wednesday, the puck to the face. And you think of all the shit he has been through over his career. And you think to yourself, like, as he's leaving the ice going down the tunnel with his nose like this, like, is he not just kind of like, man, I don't know how much more of this I really want to deal with? And who could blame him? I mean, the concussion in 2007, the collapsed lung in the 2013. I mean, you can go through the laundry list of injuries, but then you also have the other side of things, which is he's still playing really well. What do you think?
Yeah, it's something that is definitely what he'll weigh. I think even if he's playing at a high level, he's still not going to be a guy that, I think we both agree with this, he's not going to be a guy that's going to play until he's 40 and transition into like a really savvy defensive third line center. He's going to be a top line center, and he's going to retire probably at still 85-90% of his game, if not, again, even this year. He's right now, I think, the front runner for the Selke. He's having, once again, one of his best seasons, if not, again, one of his best. And when you look at just his defensive numbers are insane for what his matchups are, the minutes he gets. But again, it's you weigh it against just the off-season conditioning, the constant grind of a season. Like, as you just said, playing great, playing awesome, team's great. Then also you're probably getting your nose reset the next morning after icing it all night. And you're probably like, shit, all right, this weighs on you, right? And so I think it's something that he even mentioned this past offseason when he went through the decision to come back of, it's not just how much he loves the game, which he still does, and how much he still thinks he has left in the tank, but it's also family and, weighing those obviously very important priorities as well. So we'll see kind of what happens, right? I think it's such a thing that is so consequential for this team in terms of Bergeron's future, but it's also so up in the air, right? Because if the Bruins win the cup, then he probably goes out on top. But again, if they get a few rounds, who knows what the next step is. So it's something that will be fascinating to watch. Probably scary for a lot of Bruins fans as he mulls that decision. But in terms of the factors leading into whatever decision he makes, I don't think it has to go around or revolves around his play and it's slipping at all, because it hasn't.
No, not at all. And what's funny is, I don't know, this team has such an all-in feel, such a team of destiny feel. If they didn't win, right? If they let's just say they get to the conference final and they lose, or the cup final and they lose, to expect that the same team's going to come back the next year, do it all again and try it all again, that's a high expectation. I almost feel like that's like, if they were out in the first round, then he might be like, I'm coming back. But if it's to do that all over again and have everything go right the way it has this season, and then have it not work out and then come back in hopes that it happens again, I don't know. That's a tough one. Again, that's so far down the line, but this Bergeron retirement thing is interesting. I know there was the behind the beat clip where he says like, I'm not leaving. But again, that was for the moment. He's not going to be like, guys, I'm actually retiring at the end of this year, so please stop. Like, they're not going to say that. I also don't think they would have put that. If he did say that, I don't think they would put that in the documentary.
I don't think that would have made it through after the Sagan trade. I think they are a little bit more. Again, it's a great program, and they do showcase a lot behind the scenes. Probably some stuff they're like, you know what?
Yeah, it's funny. The behind the beat thing, it's always been fascinating to me because it's maybe the best behind the scenes hockey show in the NHL. I don't like religiously watch the others, but from the years of behind the beat, I have to say it's probably the best. And it's a fascinating look at everything that they do. But yeah, I think if Bergeron turned around and said, I'm not, actually, guys, I think I might leave at the end of this year. I don't think that would have been in the final thing. For a long time this season, one of the narratives we kept talking about was Ullmark is playing amazing, but at some point you're going to have to pump the brakes on him a little bit, give him some time to rest up for the postseason. You don't want him worn down. And part of the reason that really could never happen was Jeremy Swayman really couldn't find a groove. It just, had an injury and just, season got off to a tough start. Never really found his game until now. Jeremy Swayman 6-0-2 in his last 8, 941 save percentage and a shutout. He has been spectacular of late, and it's at the perfect time. It's coming at the perfect time. Calendar turns 2023. Couple more months left of the season. Let him, find his groove. Take a lot of.
I thought you were going to say let him cook.
Let him cook as well. Yes, hold up. Let him cook. Absolutely. But at the same time, I do think that it's coming at a good time because you can give Ullmark a little bit of rest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at it. One, it's good because you've got two goalies on heaters right now, too. And I mean, how demoralizing it for a team that you probably already look at how good the Bruins are, how much depth they have. You have Ullmark, who's putting up Vezina numbers, video game numbers. And then you have Swayman, who I don't think teams probably look at it like, all right, this is an easier matchup, but all right, like we're not getting Ullmark today. And then you look at that game against the Rangers and the amount of grade A stops, breakaways that Swayman corralled. And it wasn't even like he was making these highlight reel stops. He was just so, square to the puck, was tracking pucks well, that he made a lot of really dangerous chances for the Rangers. look pretty easy with his saves. So he's locked in right now, playing at a really high level. You had already mentioned his stat line, but it's great all around. Not only does it make an already very, very, very good Bruins team that much better, but you have Swayman who started the year slow. He's getting his confidence back. He's still a guy that, even though Ullmark is the clear number one, it's not to say that Swayman is getting relegated to, just pure backup duty. Like, the Bruins ideally want to have this two-headed monster in net. And for Swayman, you get that added motivation of fighting for those reps. And the Bruins are going to need him to keep on playing at that level. As you said, this can't be a situation that the Bruins go into this playoff with Linus Ullmark, whose career high in stats in the season was 41. They can't have him play 60-plus games. You can't have that happen, because if there's one thing that I think you look at this team in terms of a question mark for the playoffs, it's probably unfair to say it's the goaltending, because they've been otherworldly so far this year, but you need to have them rested and playing at their best level and peaking at the right time. You don't want these guys to, go into March where the schedule really ramps up again and start hitting a bit of a lull. And then you go into the last thing you want to do is to the start of the playoffs, have like Ullmark finish the year like with like a 9-10 save percentage in his last 6 or 7 starts and be like, oh, what exactly is that? Like, again, that's probably fear mongering on my part, but you just need both those guys playing at a high level. So
stoking the flames.
Yes, exactly. That's like the one thing in the back of my head. I'm always like, we'll see what happens there in terms of everything operating at a high level beyond just the obvious injuries. But Swayman, if he can start, if they can make it a 60-40 split or even 55% split in favor of Swayman down the stretch here, it'd be huge, not just to get him confident in building his game, but you just need to give Ullmark a bit of a respite here down the second half.
Again, I think what you don't want is, as you kind of alluded to, you don't want to hit the first round. And when we're talking about, first round matchups, people are like, oh, the Bruins were great all year. And then the last month and a half, Ullmark started to show that he was human and the team started to, falter a bit. Like, you don't want the losing streaks or anything like that happening in late March, mid to late March and early April. You don't want that then. So I think it's good to get Swayman reps and more time in net down the stretch here, because, as you said, he's been terrific. He was great against New York on Thursday night, and hopefully for him that kind of continues. The one negative of this whole show, Brandon Carlo took a shot right off the right leg in the game against the Rangers on Thursday. Team announced he was out with a lower body injury, didn't return to the game. Obviously, a lot of minutes thrown on the rest of the D-corps. Hopefully things are all good with him. I will say at least it's not a head injury with him, given his history with concussions. I think that's step one of it. It's better that it wasn't his head, obviously. But I do think that this hits at a bigger thing. And that is that at the deadline, probably wouldn't hurt to, obviously we talk about Horvat and we talk about the big fish, but it really wouldn't hurt if you went out and got a depth right shot defenseman, because after Carlo and Clifton and McAvoy, it's a bit tougher. Strawman's a good veteran, but can you rely on him in a playoff series? I don't know. Mike Riley has not played much this year. So I think this kind of emphasizes the need for, hey, go out and add a little depth on the right side.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something, it's not just you look at Brandon Carlo, who obviously has those injury concerns. Thankfully this wasn't it. It was just another really bad break, but that comes with the job, right? In terms of these guys and the amount of punishment they take day in and day out. And you can go in with the best laid plans of the postseason in terms of your decor, but all it takes is a puck going off the shin or a broken bone or what have you to all of a sudden you're left scrambling. So yes, the Bruins have an option for right now with a guy like Jakob Zboril, who hasn't played his best this year, but I think it does reinforce the fact that you still probably need another guy back there on defense. It's just going to be tough, because I think you look over the last couple of years, how the trade market is and how wacky you can get in terms of what the asking prices are. Like a guy like Shen, or one of these guys that's veteran, hard-nosed, the exact guy you want to add to your team. Everyone wants that guy now. Like every single guy, even if they don't have, and there's teams that probably need him to be a legit third pairing everyday guy. Like the Bruins would probably just want a guy that's there for added depth to really round out the roster. So it's going to be tough in terms of getting those, guys that fit in perfectly for what your role is without having to give up for early and overpay. But I think it does reinforce the point. The Bruins have to look for at least some depth, whether that's on defense up front. Like we always talk about guys like Bo Horvat or what have you. But if they can add another guy that could not play every day, but fill in on the fourth line when needed, when you need an extra body in the bottom six, I think that's more what the Bruins should be looking at, and probably what is most realistic for what this team is going to do once we get to the trade deadline.
I mean, you just look at the amount of shots Derek Forbert's been blocking. Like, you know, not to say he's going to get injured from that, but you don't know what one of those shots could do. Like, again, as you said, it can just a decor can just be ruptured like that. And I think, as you said, with a guy like Schenn, it's funny because if Luke Schenn gets dealt in like August, it's for like, I don't know what, like a 5th round pick, 4th round pick or something small. Now at the deadline, it'll be like, you know, top, you know, a mid-tier prospect and like a 2nd round pick or something like that, something exorbitant. But again, if you want a Stanley Cup out of that, I guess it makes sense. But hopefully Carlo's all right. It just kind of hits at the needs with the deadline. We will have more on the trade deadline coming up. It's only 6 weeks away now, so a little over a month. But it will be here before you know it. Teams like Carolina are going to be very in on it after Max Pacioretty most likely is done for the year after, I'm guessing, another Phillies thing. It looked horrible. But again, that's $7 million in cap space that they have to play with now. So I would imagine, you know, they'll be in on the Horvat stuff, and we'll have more coverage of that. Connor, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston.com?
Yeah, we're going to have you again covered every step of the way this season with Bruins content. Not just Bruins content, though. I was over at the Celtics-Warriors game, which was a fantastic game on Thursday. So we had coverage from that. And whether it's the Red Sox and their offseason, the Patriots and their very interesting offseason, and, of course, Bruins coverage that you know and love, all that will be over at Boston.com. So please follow along over there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. I'll plug something as well. I have a Bruins story coming. I've not had many Bruins stories this year, but I do have one coming, I believe, on Monday. It involves Brad Marchand and some interesting stuff. Some interesting, a story I think you guys will enjoy. So make sure to go subscribe over New England Hockey Journal to get a little taste of that. And that is Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Both the Bear listeners have a great rest of your week.